What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Today we're going to talk about the Netflix show that just dropped on Thursday, July 30th. I told you we would, and luckily I was able to kind of get everything together in order to watch it and get it sorted and all that, so that's a beautiful thing. That being said, a couple things. I have a light out here, that's why it seems a little dark. I got to switch that at some point today, and if I sound congested, it's because of what I talked about on Nerd Rage, and I am feeling better, and I am on a upward trajectory. See, I got more water. But I want to talk about the show because I actually have a lot to say about it, so it'll be a little bit of a review. I got a little bit of Easter egg stuff to kind of go over, and we'll wrap it up. Definitely got some house cleaning things, though, this week. This past week with the Hasbro Pulse stuff, a lot of people expressed their concerns in regards to exclusives, in regards to getting stuff from overseas. A lot of people chimed in from different countries where I hadn't had kind of correspondence from, so that was interesting to read in the comments. Like I said, I think that Hasbro Pulse offers a very unique chance for Hasbro to do something pretty innovative, and I think they are not totally dropping the ball with it, to be honest and fair, but they don't have a firm hand on the ball either, so it's kind of it's just funny to me. Alright, moving on to Fans Toys Hunk. The waist swivel. So he does have a waist swivel. It is about a 20 degree turn. I'm going to show you video footage here of why mine was not detected for a number of reasons, but if you look at this, I can't move it this particular way. I can move it the other way, and when I go to move it this particular way, it untabs the side tabs. I have the back tab sorted, I have the side tab sorted.
Is that Bumblebee?
So mine has a little bit of a QC issue despite the guy giving me my sticker, which is fine. Oftentimes I don't have many QC problems with Fans Toys, so I guess it's my turn to get one. I'm good with it. There's a number of things that come as a direct response to that, though. So that withstanding, I'm wrong, right? He had a bit of a waist swivel, so that needs to be noted, and we're noting it. However, my criticisms pretty much still stand firm. It's a limited articulated figure. Single hinged knee, single hinged elbows, limited ankle rockers, limited waist swivel. I'm a defender, certified defender. Some of you guys that were killing me aren't even real defenders. But the only way for them to stay top shelf is to call them when stuff is on the weaker side. Those arms, there's no reason why those arms shouldn't have been double jointed for a full range. There's no reason. They just sit back on his back with the shell over top. It's the same for the knees. There's no reason why those knees couldn't have been double jointed. The ankles, I'll give them. But they could have done more. And in an era where a lot of companies are doing more with articulation, I don't want to see them get lost in the sauce. They could have done more. It's so funny, though, to read sometimes, like, people like, you need to spend more time with the figure. It'd be those same people that would be like, why is this review so late? Where's this review at? Like, I can't do both. I can't have the review up quickly to let you guys get an idea of what you're in the market for and simultaneously take all the time in the world to get super familiar with it. Like, you gotta choose one or the other. So, I do the best I can. I'm gonna make some mistakes. It's okay. We'll get past it. But yeah, I still pretty much feel the same way about the figure. I think it looks good on a shelf in an A stance. I don't think you could do much else with it. I think that's pretty much a bummer, and I think a lot of it could have been fixed. I still think that the hue is wrong with the green. Not the biggest deal in the world, but we gotta call it when it's wrong. Moving on to Scorponok. A lot of people think that I was trashing it, and then other people thought I was being good to it, so that makes me feel that my opinion is probably well received. The best way to describe it, honestly, is it's not as bad as I would fear, and it's not as good as I would hope. My main issue with it is an issue of proportions. It looks top heavy, and the bottom part of it looks small. It ends up looking like a baby, you know? It's not amazing. It's not trash. You know, it's neither. It's fine. There was a guy on there saying that I trash Hasbro in every video I get the opportunity to. You're a bozo. I don't trash Hasbro at all. As a matter of fact, I mainly praise them. Is it getting darker in here? Or is it just me? Dummies. A lot of people were saying they don't have any regrets because they sold off their stuff, and that's cool if that's the way that you feel. I sold off a lot of my stuff too. I still regret like the time wasted and there's a lot of things that circle into that. And it's not like I'm losing sleep over it. It's more like regret is like a loose term, really. It's like just a discussion point, you know. And like a lot of people pointed out, you know, you can't predict the future, and that's exactly the case. And then lastly, merch of the week. Today we'll go over the t-shirt stuff. I had the t-shirts on TeePublic. A lot of good ones on there. Your shelf is trash for scale purposes only. You know, of course, the Truth logo, DMH logo, which I happen to be wearing today, not on purpose. You know, some other little fun stuff. So that link will be at the top of the bio. It's also in like the scroll bar of YouTube itself. So there you go. A portion of everything that we do this year is going to a gentleman that lost his life, or his family rather, to cancer. So that's what we're doing. And that being said, we can move into the discussion of today. So this show, look, I want to do this as we always do, kind of movie reviews. I know this isn't a movie, but it's 6 episodes. It takes about 2 hours to watch, so we'll treat it it as a movie. It is an overarching story, so I think it makes sense. So we're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then we're going to break down a little bit of the kind of Easter eggs and fun facts about it at the end, and give a final score. So let's start with the good. Let's start off on a good foot, and let me tell you exactly what I like about it. So I love that they took it serious. It has a serious tone. It has a dark tone. It has a gritty tone, and all of that really works for the story that they're trying to tell. The action scenes work really well. They're fluent. It feels like they have consequence. It feels like you're not guaranteed that every character is going to make it out unscathed. So that's going to add to a bit of drama, right? That's going to add to a bit of investment from the viewer to kind of get into the story and really care about the outcome of something. If it's always the kind of drones or the stormtroopers or the battle droids that end up getting killed, no one really cares. It has no gravitas, right? So the fact that this does mean something, and it does help with the overall tone, and it does help with the action being enjoyable. That kind of edge of your seat stuff. I think that the animation is mostly good. There's a couple issues I have with it. We'll get into it a bit later, but for the most part, I feel like it's good. And I think that they're well aware of their weaknesses. If you look at the camera shots and stuff, a lot of it is kind of close up, like from here up, or it gives you a lot of distance. It's when they do those mid-frame shots where it gets a little weird. We'll talk about it in a bit, but overall, I thought the animation was done fairly well. It has a wide character roster, which I really appreciated. I've always said that's something that's important to stuff like Transformers and G.I. Joe, is that they show as much of the character roster as they can. There was something about those shows growing up that made them meaningful when they had this huge cast of characters. The world seemed bigger. The army seemed grander. The stakes seemed higher. So I think they made a good choice in having a very wide character roster. Now they had some repaint stuff kind of in there, and they had some kind of like clone type stuff going on in there. But that aside, the main characters and named characters were very broad. So that was a good choice. While we're on the subject of characters, I also think that for the most part, the characters are done right. They're, for the most part, they're true to form. There's a couple of them that I was like, but I'm even okay with it. Ultra Magnus is one of them where I'm like, I'm not sure if I buy this portrayal, but I was able to take a leap of faith and say, you know what, I'll go out on a limb that we're kind of doing a reboot here, and I can see Ultra Magnus this way. I can envision him this way. Even if it doesn't necessarily work for me at my core, I can get on board because of the other things that are going right about the show. But for the most part, I thought they did really right by most of the characters and gave most of the characters justice. I think the character that kind of walks away stealing the show is Alita 1. Like, she's the character that, at least on the Autobot side, that has the most kind of story to her and real merit to her, where a lot of them do feel like very surfacey on the Autobot side, which we'll get back to here in a second also. But even the surfacey stuff, it all seems true to form. It seems like they were trying to be respectful of the history of the character. And DeSanto said in an interview that he thought that Alita 1 was the beating heart of the series, and I would agree with him on that. Lastly, there's a mixed good and bad to this, but the characters look just like the toys, right? Because they're taken from the CAD models of the toys, which doesn't do some of them any favors. But can you imagine being a kid and being into this and the toys looked exactly like the cartoon representation? How satisfying would that be? Moving into the bads, the intro is terrible. Like the little introduction, like the little skip intro part, terrible. Which is a bummer because I feel like Transformers usually have great intros. I mean, like, everybody remembers the classic G1 intro. Like, it's like one of their things, right? And this one's not good at all. It's just like stupid and dumb and soulless and lifeless, and we'll get back to that in a minute. Unfortunately, on the Autobot side, I feel like a lot of the dialogue is kind of useless. Like, it doesn't do much for the story. It doesn't do much for the characters. It just kind of is like Prime has to say some Prime stuff, and then Hound has to say some Hound stuff. And with the exception of Alita 1 and maybe Bumblebee, it doesn't, actually definitely Bumblebee, it doesn't do much for the character development of those characters. They're just like shells of themselves, which brings me to my biggest complaint of this thing, which is that the whole show to me seems a little soulless. And that's mainly because they are operating at the last days of the war, but you haven't really earned the drama of that, because you're just giving us tidbits of the past story of which brought you to this point, involving the kind of drama between Optimus and Megatron, Autobot and Decepticon, and the caste system of Cybertron. So with just dry mentioning of it and no real character development put into a lot of the heroes, it just ends up seeming very much like a surfacey thing, like a hollow thing. And you could tell that the story is there, you know what I mean? Like, they have it planned out. It's just, I wish that they would have told it earlier, because I think starting so late, it doesn't do any of it a real service. In fact, it does most of it a disservice, because it hasn't earned the drama of where it's trying to take place. That's my biggest criticism of it. I think if they would have allowed you the opportunity to see Prime and Megatron grow and separate and all that, and kind of start there, start with the injustices on Cybertron and kind of see that through as it splits into two armies to wage the war and the whole bit. By the time you got to this part of the story, it all would have meant a ton more, but because they only kind of reference it in quick little blips, it just seems like empty. Moving on to the ugly, I don't have a lot of ugly to say. There are a few things. Soundwave's voice is trying to be like the G1 voice, but it doesn't do a good job at all. It sounds like somebody on YouTube would have tried. It doesn't sound like somebody that has like Hollywood at their disposal or is making something for a professional program. Like it doesn't. It sounds really bad. There's also some ugliness as it relates to using the toy CAD molds for the show, and that basically comes down to characters like, or whatever her name is supposed to be, that she has all that stuff hanging off of her. And so the character design of the show has all that stuff hanging off of her, and she looks obnoxious. But what they all suffer from is fluidity of movement, because the Transformers, basically they have a waist swivel, right? There's no ab crunch, there's no abdominal movement. So it looks like what they take is like the square box of the abdomen, they just sort of like move it around, and like it looks so like silly putty-ish. If you watch just the abdomen move, it's unnerving to me. All the rest, like the arms and legs and stuff, they all look good. Sometimes because of the toys, the legs look silly when they have to run, because it's just not designed that way. The toys don't look good either doing that, so when they make them do that, it's like they're trying to make them look like they're running fast, but it never looks like they're running fast because it looks odd. But I mean, just watch their abdomen and the way that they try to manipulate it to give them like real proper life and stuff, and you could tell it's just like almost like if you take a thing on a picture and you're like stretching it one way or stretching it another way to try to make it work. It's like that. It doesn't really do it well. It's very unsightly to me. Sticks out to me. But that's not going to bother everybody. And to be fair, one of the things I was worried about was Megatron's lips. In the context of the show and watching it and getting into it, because I think the Decepticons do a much better job of giving character to their characters, it doesn't bother me at all. His lips were not jarring to me in one way. Like, I think maybe the first time I saw him, but ever after that, it was when we were off to the races, I didn't even think twice about it. So let's get into some kind of like just fun facts regarding it. Easter egg stuff. The Sea of Rust is shown and mentioned. The Guardians are talked about, somewhat shown. Iacon is another one that was dropped. There's a great nod to the G1 cartoon that starts with B and Wheeljack, and this episode starts with B and Wheeljack, which was definitely appreciated by a guy like myself. And a lot of this is inspired by Robert's contributions to IDW. And not just Robert's, but a lot of those earlier kind of contributors to IDW. Stuff like the Gladiator Pits, the Mines, the Battle of Tallhauser Gate or something is mentioned, but it's Tarn, like it's, you know, the Battle of Tarn, which is a direct pull. So I like all that stuff. It makes me feel like they kind of got it. I just think that maybe if we would have started a little bit earlier, we could have had something a little bit more epic on our hands. But I like the show overall. I give it a 7 out of 10, which is fine. You know, I would have taken it in high school any day of the week. It leaves on a bit of a cliffhanger. I don't want to spoil stuff, but maybe next week we'll talk about what I think that scene meant or could mean. But supposedly there'll be more, you know, and I hope that there is more, because I do think that the show has a chance of being something great, or at the very least good. But right now we're at the fine stage, but we can build from fine. We can work up from fine. We can't work up from trash. So I'm happy to see it. Love to see it. Love to hear it. Love to watch it. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Take care.